Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, with over 70% of viewers not subscribed. The beautiful thing about the aviation industry is just how expansive it truly is. There are so many corners that are left unexplored, undiscovered, and their importance to many cannot be ignored. There are even parts of major carriers that most are yet to find out about. And with it being so fast-paced, sometimes things do fly under the radar. Maybe a weird aircraft order, perhaps a commitment that never eventuated, maybe a crew policy, a concept aircraft, or something else in between. You get where I'm coming from though. Delta is part of the big three US carriers, and as such has a responsibility to be there, not just for the American people, but for all those passing through and utilizing their network. Their fleet exceeds 900 aircraft, and is no doubt substantial. They also, as a result, hardly fly just a couple of aircraft types. While the airline is currently in the process of attempting to reduce the number of types in active service, or at least replace most with next-generation fuel-efficient aircraft that sees them streamline their brand, they are certainly an airline that has dipped their toes into many aircraft types through the years, and maybe just a little bit more than a standard carrier would do. Out of all the planes currently in production, there was one aircraft that could have actually had a future with Delta, but never did. And it's probably one to you that doesn't come immediately to mind when you think of the airline, especially if you're maybe just getting into the industry. That's the Boeing 787. Yep, the Dreamliner. It is notably a series that Delta does not fly to this day, and when looking closely at its neighbours, United Airlines and American Airlines, the other two airlines occupying that big three spot, the 787 for them is actually a pivotal part of their long-haul fleet, whereas at Delta, it's the A350. Well, the thing is, maybe in a different universe, life would have panned out differently, because the company, believe it or not, once had orders for the 787 to its name. But why did they have these 787 orders, and what happened to them? Delta's Boeing 787 order wasn't your typical aircraft commitment, placed, say, by the company for their future operations, and more importantly, placed directly or through a leasing company. No, their 787 order was inherited through a merger with Northwest in 2008, with commitments for 18 Dreamliners coming across. It's prevalent when mergers take place, or any form of consolidation in the industry, that any outstanding orders that might be inherited do normally get eventually cancelled, or existing units that are, say, in active service and move across to the airline that is taking over that company's operations could potentially be slowly removed, and a major if they don't align with the airline's respective long-term goals. Notably, one of the more recent mergers that has come under the spotlight, well, when I say recent, it's been a while, but the fleet changes have been more recent, is Alaska Airlines and Virgin America. Why? Well, Alaska acquired a host of Airbus aircraft from this merger with Virgin America that you could make the case for never really fit in with what the company wanted to do with their fleet for the long term, but they still acquired them and still flew them for a small period. They didn't remain long in the grand scheme of things, and in the past year, Alaska Airlines have been actively removing all Airbus-produced aircraft in favour of keeping Boeing for their mainline and Embraer for their regional network. After 8 years of having the 787 contract to the Delta name, thanks to Northwest, the airline formally pulled the plug in 2016, in what was a largely expected decision that just needed that formal announcement. At the time, the Delta SVP for Supply Chain Management and Fleet said it was solely a business decision, and their relationship with Boeing was fantastic and not affected by this. The 787 series just didn't really align with where they wanted to head with regards to future wide-body aircraft, and it's not something they needed, and that can even be more understood when you factor in that Delta didn't actually place that 787 order themselves. It was Northwest. Northwest's deal was placed in 2005 and consisted of the 787-8. That is the smallest variant in the series. However, like most new aircraft, you'll probably recall that the 787 encountered some delays when it came to its eventual launch, something we're now all too familiar with, whether it's the A321XLR, the 777X, the upcoming A350F. Certification is no easy feat. And because of these 787 delays, it meant Northwest couldn't fly the Dreamliner before Delta acquired the company. And thanks to the consolidation, any plans to take delivery of the 787 for, at that point, Delta were put on the back burner. And it quickly became another one of those orders that just really sat there with no movement. No one really expected Delta to fly the 787 for that long period where there was no movement, but the order still remained. It's very similar to United Airlines' ongoing commitment for the Airbus A350, and yes, that staggeringly still does exist. But with each year, or say any commitment placed by United for other aircraft, whether that be for Airbus or Boeing planes, they do always defer the 350 a couple of more years. It's unlikely that United Airlines will ever fly the A350 similar to Delta with the 787, but according to analysts, cancelling now just isn't optimal. So instead, they defer and wait. If United flies the A350, I think you'll have many shocked faces. But for now, we wait, just like those 8 years between Delta acquiring the 787s through Northwest and formally cancelling it. As covered in another video here on the channel only 2 weeks ago, the cancellation of that 787 order that they got from Northwest was another part of their shift in strategy for fleet to move towards Airbus planes for their wide-body needs. And following the removal of the 777s during the pandemic, the company, you could say, is certainly moving ahead with the A330neo and A350 series for decades to come, with another rumoured order for these two aircraft that would only strengthen the Airbus presence but also could include the higher capacity A350-1000, which would give them further flexibility in the coming decades and is primarily seen by many as a perfect aircraft that Delta is yet to fly. Of course, airlines have and still want the 787, so Delta cancelling the orders freed up potential delivery slots and the availability of units for airlines that were awaiting these 787s and, unlike Delta, actually wanted to fly the planes. Although you certainly have to wonder, because it had been such a long time, just how much was really tied down when it came to delivery slots. Also, this was quite a period ago. So with that being said, would you have liked to have seen Delta fly the 787 Dreamliner, even though they never technically ordered the aircraft themselves and rather inherited it from a merger? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you very much for your support. If you are new to GlobeTrotting and this is your first video and you enjoyed the analysis, be sure to subscribe because there is much more on the way. A very warm thank you for your support as always, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more coverage on our wonderful industry.
And we'll fly.